This new gacha game has drawn open comparisons to the likes of Pokémon, which you can credit to its catching, training, and battling of over 100 collectible monsters. But to say that this is simply a clone of Pokémon would be to completely ignore 90% of what this game is all about. And although on the surface this game looks happy, jolly, and adorable, it's actually pretty darn dark. And it's almost ready, Mr. Lamball. And the game that I'm talking about is Palworld. I'll be honest, I was somewhat wary of Palworld before picking up the controller to get hands-on with the game, mainly because everything I'd seen up to this point had only raised more questions. Like, on one side there are these adorable monsters called pals for you to catch, befriend, and battle with, and on the flip side you're given the freedom to catch or kill every pal you encounter, which in turn lets you serve a Lamball kebab to Lamball. Did I mention that Palworld has guns? Not that I've used one yet, they take absolutely ages to unlock and I've only played this for like a day, so the question remains, is Palworld a family-friendly adventure, or is it something a bit more sinister? See ya! Whatever the case, Palworld is on its way to Game Pass, and let's just say my curiosity is piqued. So I spent 7 to 8 hours with Pocket Pair's open world survival game, fumbling through the initial tutorial, capturing over 30 pals, exploring the diverse biomes, and even beating the game's first big boss. After waking up dazed and confused on a beach, our customizable character's primary goal is to figure out what the big tree in the middle is all about, and how to do that requires you to catch pals, train them and level them up, locate several towers scattered across the world, and beat the boss that lives at the top of them. What immediately stuck out was the game's open world elements, ranging from base building, crafting, farming, exploration, and increasingly difficult world bosses. Palworld doesn't feel like your bog standard Pokemon clone by any means, and yes, you catch pals, train them up, and everything you'd expect from the gacha loop. There's even a pal dex of sorts. But Palworld plays much more like your Valheim and Ark survival games, and there's even a hint of Breath of the Wild's gliding, climbing, and stamina bar too. In the early stages, the typical survival tropes like bashing sticks and stones together to craft tools, build structures, farming, and after a fair bit of grinding, even fashion yourself some clothes. It took far too long for me to cover my pasty sticks. But the resource gathering, crafting, and inventory management are central elements, making the initial gameplay loop, as you'd expect, a tad long-winded and fussy. However, once you recruit pals to manage your base whilst you're off on your grand adventure, Palworld becomes a much more rewarding and satisfying gameplay experience. Let's delve into the meat of the game, and like I said before, the literal meat in some cases, but for clarity, the pals and how they fit into the game. Just like in Pokemon, pals exist in this world to be caught and put to work in some way. Assembling your ultimate hit squad of your favorite pals is a familiar process. You stumble across a target, weaken it through battle before cracking the pal over the head with a pal orb. If successful, great, you've enslaved an adorable monster to do your bidding. Pals can join you on your adventure to battle other wild pals, humanoid enemies with guns, and tackle those difficult bosses. Instead of leaving your remaining pals in a box for eternity, you can instead put them to work on your base. Each pal has its own capabilities. For example, Cataverb can work the stone mines, whereas Foxparks can forge iron ingots. You can also craft saddles to mount your pals too. Whilst the gacha method remains largely unchanged, you now have the freedom to craft weapons for personal combat instead of relying on pals to do all the battling for you. As a whole, personal combat feels good enough. It's not groundbreaking by any means, and at times it can be a bit janky, but it's decent and what you'd expect from these open world survival games. Where Palworld does shine a little brighter is the Pal combat. Each monster comes with its own skills, strengths, and weaknesses, as well as an elemental effectiveness too. It's like Pokémon for the most part, only you can join in on the battle, peppering foes from afar with your bow and later guns, or getting up close to club a Chickapee or two. In my time with the game so far, I've managed to craft your bare bones club and bow up to a cleaver, spear, and triple arrowed bow, which, when you decide it's time to encounter the harder world bosses and tower battles, the better weapons really do shine and help turn the tide of the battle. But I suppose it's slightly disappointing having to go through the entire Stone Age of weaponry before I can bust out an assault rifle to riddle pals and enemies alike. But I am keen to get there, and I actually want to keep playing, so that in turn is great. But man, does it take a long time. So if I were to summarize my hands-on time with the game, for the most part I've thoroughly enjoyed what Palworld offers. Having the gotcha element added to an open world survival experience keeps things entertaining. The joy you get from adventuring further away from camp with every expedition to spot new pals just captures the excitement of Pokemon, but in a fresh new way. I personally found the crafting to be somewhat awkward in areas, like house building was a bit naff. But bear in mind, Palworld is very much in early access, and I'm sure with time it'll just get better. Now, there's plenty more to get into, but as far as I'm concerned, Palworld's open world survival and gotcha goodness does a decent job blending the best of both genres together to make a great addition to Xbox and PC Game Pass this January. What do you think? Will you be playing Palworld on the 19th? Tell us in the comments below. Be sure to check out purexbox.com for more on Palworld this week, as well as subscribing to the channel here. All that's left to say is bye-bye for now. Cheerio!